All right, Jabosai, let us begin. I want to start the morning by thanking our Shir sponsors, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Sivan, Justin and Abigail Rosemore, for dedicating all the Shir and Drashos this month in memory of their beloved son Kobe, Chaim Yaakov David Zichron Levracha ben Yosef Tzaddik. To thank our monthly Talmud Torah sponsors, Alan and Sumairowitz and family, for dedicating all the Shiurim and Drashos this month in the merit of a Refuah Shalema for Shulamis Tova Bas Mindel. We thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Adam and Allison Steinmetz, Sherry and Alan Steinmetz, for dedicating all the Shiurim and Drashos this week in memory of their mother, Harriet Steinmetz, Chaya, mother and grandmother, Harriet Steinmetz, Chaya Bas Meir Zichron Levracha, on the occasion of her fourth yahrzeit. Maybe Zochim Yartz Hashem that her neshama has an aliyah and the family in Nechama. And our Daf sponsors this morning, Dr. and Mrs. Peter Warshawski, for dedicating the shir this morning in honor of the bar mitzvah of their grandson Ephraim Mordechai Gansher. We wish the Warshawskis an incredible mazel tov. They should be Zochem Yartz Hashem to see many beautiful generations of profound Yiddish and nachos. Mazel tov, mazel tov. I will say with that, let us begin. We have a fascinating daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Tzadik Ches 98, and we are picking up on Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis 97b. I know left off like towards the middle end of the sugya, but we just ran out of time. So we're 97b, about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, about 15, 16 lines up from the bottom, right across from Tosas Hare. So Tosas says, Itmar Nami. So let's remember again, we were discussing a number of different machloksim. So machloksim, and really that come up in cases of where you go ahead and you throw an item, and the item goes in and traverses a number of different rishuyos, right? A number of different domains. And so the shaila, the fundamental shaila that we're dealing with, of course, is what happens, do we say kluta kamishuncha u kluta shalokuncha? We'll see when an object travels through the airspace of a particular domain, ultimately, do we view it as if the item came to rest in that domain or not? So that's really the major machlokes that's fueling a lot of what's going on over here. So the Gemara says, Itmar Nami, we learned as well. Itmar Nami Rama Yosi Deron Tarbayu. Lochiyev Rabbi Yehuda Ela Achas. Let's remember again, then there was a discussion in the situation, ultimately, again, of where you threw an object from Rishus Hayachid through to Rishus Harabim, through and it landed in Rishus Hayachid, or again from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, traveled an additional dollar Amos in Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Yehuda was Mechayiv, Rabbi Akiva says you're Pater. So the shaila was when Rabbi Yehuda says that you're Chayiv, are you Chayiv once, you Chayiv twice? So the Gemara says, remember again, that has to do with Kluta Kamishuncha or not. So the Gemara says both said. So both Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi said, Rabbi Yehuda ala achos. Rabbi Yehuda only held you Chayiv once. Only Rabbi Ravashi, Ulamai the Salik Adaitin Meikara, Timechayev Hoyer Rabbi Huda Shtayim. Rabbi said when we had a Havamina before that, Rabbi Huda would hold that you're Chayev twice. Because remember, Rabbi say, if you have a situation where you're throwing an object from, let's say, Rishus Hayachid through Rishus Harabim into Rishus Hayachid, it comes to rest in Rishus Hayachid. So remember, if you hold Kluta Kimishahun Chadami, that means that the object comes to rest in the Rishus Harabim and then travels again into the Rishus HaYachid. If that's the case, if you follow that through to the logical conclusion, if you feel that it's as if the object came to rest in the intervening Rishus, then in fact one should be Chayiv twice, one for an act of Hotzah and one for an act of Hachnasa, to which the Gemara says, Ilahacha kabayla, lahacha lo kabayla, Ilahacha kabayla, lahacha lo kabayla. I will say, here's the problem with saying that you should be Chayiv twice. Remember, one of the things that governs Hilchos Shabbos is Meleches Machsheves. Meleches Machsheves. So we'll say Meleches Machsheves means that I have to have specific intention. It has to be intentionality when it comes to do Malacha. So we'll say, when there's intentionality, it means, even when I throw an object, there's a level of intentionality. Where do I want the object to go? What do I want the object to do? So how could Rabbi Huda say that you're Chayiv twice? Because at the end of the day, when the person threw the object, obviously their intention seems to be one thing, either to go into a Rishus Harabim or to go into a Rishus HaYachid, but how could you be chayiv for multiple infractions? Amarle, the case is where Ba'omer called Makom Shetir Tzat Tanuach. We'll say, what's the case? The case ultimately, again, is where a person says, wherever the object lands, I am happy. So therefore, we'll say if you say easy to please, right, an easy to please hotzah individual. So if you say you're happy with wherever the object lands, then einachinami. If you apply the principle of klu to kamishoncha, that means that the object comes to rest in the intervening rishos. Then essentially is uprooted and once again goes into the secondary rishos. So therefore, you could have a situation of multiple levels of chiyuv. Okay, so the Gemara goes weiter. Pshita. It is obvious. One second. It is obvious. I want to show you an interesting halacha. But all right, you know what? I'll wait a little bit. Okay, fine. We'll come back to that halacha in just a second. So the Gemara says as follows: Pshita. It is obvious. Okay, fine, good. Pshita. Niskavin Lizrok Shmona v'Zark Arba. We'll say an interesting case. A person had in mind to throw Dalet Amos, and what happens? The object only goes 4 Amos. Interesting case. So this is my explicit intent. Say I want to throw an object Dalet Amos, but the object only goes 4 Amos. I want to throw an object 8 Amos, but it only goes 4 Amos. So what's the halacha? A person is chayiv. Why? Because Hari Kasav Shem is Shimon. Because we'll say it's the same way that if a person had in mind to write the name Shimon, but instead of writing Shimon, he just wrote Shem, Shin Mem. So he's chayiv. Why? Because you also remember again for ksiva, how are you chayiv? You're chayiv number 1 if you go ahead and you write 2 letters, but those 2 letters must be meaningful. So remember, even though your intention was to write Shimon, once you write Shin Mem, which is a meaningful unit, Shem, right? Shem could be a name or Shem could mean the word name. Then halacha l'maisa you're chayiv. So too, if you had in mind to go ahead and throw 8 amas, but it only went 4 amas, you're chayiv also. Why? Because B'Pashas the Gemara's understanding that 4 amas is included in 8 amas. What about niskavin lizrok arba v'zarak shmona? We'll say, what about the following case? Let's say a person had in mind to throw an object dalet amas, but it went 8 amas. So he overshot. What's the halacha? Mahu kimi amrinan ha'abikle. Do we say, well, listen, your intention was to move the object, and you moved the object. While it is true that you only wanted to move it dalet amas, and it went 8 amas, okay, who cares? At the end of the day, you accomplished your objective. O dilma, hecha de boy halonach. Or on the other hand, we could say, well, 1 second. You wanted it to go dalet amas, and it went 8 amas. So it's at the end of the day, what you wanted, the way you wanted the malacha to materialize, did not materialize. Maybe not chayiv. I will say, remember again, we said before that maybe the case is where a person says, I'm okay with wherever the object lands. So we'll say, interestingly enough, if a person is okay with wherever the object lands, that's fine. But the inference from that is that if I'm not okay with wherever the object lands, and I dafka want the object to go 8 amas, but it only went 4 amas, that halacha l'maisa, or I should say 4 amas, but it went 8 amas, that halacha l'maisa should not be chayiv, because what I wanted did not materialize. To which the Gemara says, okay, but let's go back to the first case. Shem Mishim Midam. We're supposed to remember again, the first case the Gemara introduced is where I want to throw it 8 amas, but I only end up throwing it 4 amas. So the Gemara says, you're chayiv. Why you chayiv? Because the Gemara equates that with the case of writing Shem Mishimon. Just like if you had intention to write Shimon, but you only end up writing Shem, you're chayiv. So too, if you had intention ultimately to throw it 8 amas, but it only goes 4 amas, you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because just like Shem is part of Shimon, 4 amas is part of 8 amas. To which the Gemara says, me dummy, that's not a good comparison. Hasam kamud lo ksiv Shem lo machtiv le Shimon. See, in the case of Shem and Shimon, you can't write the name Shimon without writing Shem. Hacha kamud lo zarik arba lo mizdakri le timni. But I will say in this case over here, is that true that you could only go ahead if you want to throw an object 8 amas, that Allah Chalamais you must first throw it 4 amas? That's not true, as Rabbi say. In order to throw an object 8 amas, you don't first need the object to come to rest at 4 amas and then go another 4 amas. It's possible ultimately again for it to traverse the entire distance without it resting at the 4 amma mark. See, Rabbi say The chaput the shem mishimin. The reason you're chayiv there is because at the end of the day, you can't get to shimin without shame. So therefore, again, once I get to shame, I have done something incrementally important. Masha'inkin, if my intention was to throw the object 8 amas, and it goes 4 amas, it comes to rest, meaning I could have accomplished 8 amas without the 4 amas. Well, so when I say I could accomplish 8 amas without the 4 amas, meaning I could accomplish throwing it 8 amas, ultimately, again, without it first stopping at the 4 amma mark. Okay, so therefore the Gemara kind of leaves this open-ended. So Rabbi said, this is actually quite fascinating because in general, this case gets to the core of what happens when your intentions for the malacha do not materialize as you had hoped. So listen to this. This is in Perek Yud Gimel, Halacha Chaf Aleph in the Rambam. So the Rambam writes as follows: Hamiskavein lizrog shmona amos b'rishos harabim. The person has in mind to throw an object 8 amos in Rishos harabim. V'noch hachefetz b'sof arba, but the object comes to rest at the end of Dalar amos. The Rambam paskins chayiv. For that you're chayiv. Why? Shari nase kishir hamalacha v'nases machshavto. So we'll say ultimately again the Rambam says this is because 4 amos obviously is halachically significant, and the Rambam views this as the materializing of the person's intent. This is your intent came true. Shadavar yadua she'ein zachefetz magila sof shmona ad sheyavar al kol makom umakom mikol shmona. Because we'll say everyone knows that in order to get to 8 amos, what do you have to get to first? You have to get through Dalet amos. So therefore, Rabbi says it's really quite fascinating. Even though I say my intention is for the object to travel 8 amos, and I throw it, and it drops at the end of Dalet amos, the Rambam says I'm chayiv, because that unit of 4 amos is part of my intent. You can't get to 8 amos without first getting through 4 amos, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. On the other hand, aval miskavin lizrog arba. But I will say if your intention was to go and throw the object Dalar amos, but you overshot it and it went 8 amos, in that case you are pater. Why? Because why? Because that object comes to rest now in a place that you never intended. You see, when you intend to throw it 8 amos and it comes to rest in 4 amos, it was my intention that the object passes through that space. Now, while it's true I wanted the object to continue going, lemaisa, coming to rest at the end of 4 amos is still a partial actualization of my intention. Masha'in came, if I only wanted to throw it 4, but it ends up going 8, that is not the materialization of my mindset, and therefore halacha lemaisa, the Rambam paskins that such a person will not be chayiv. Incredible. So let's go weiter. We'll say, turn Rabbanon. Hazorek Mirshus Hayachid. Sorry, Hazorek Mirshus Rabim Mirshus Hayachid be'emtza. Dalet Amos Chayv. We'll say, fascinating case. I throw an object from one Rishus Rabim to another Rishus Rabim, but there's a Rishus Hayachid in the middle, and the object travels 2 amos in Rishus Harabim A, 2 amos in Rishus Harabim B. So therefore, when you look at the trajectory of this object, it has traveled Dalid Amos in Rishus Harabim. It's just that what? It's traveled Dalid Amos over the span of 2 different Rishuyos with a Rishus Hayochid in the middle. So the Gemara says, such a person is chayiv. Top of Tzadik Ches. Pachos mi arba amos. But ultimately, again, if the combined amount of the 2 domains is less than Dalet Amos, then what? Then ultimately, again, says the Gemara, Potter. So my Kamash Malan will say, so what is this price coming to teach us? This is incredible. Ha Kamash Malan, Rishuyos Mitstarfos. We'll say, what do you see from here? You see from here, Halacha Lamaisa, number 1, that domains have the ability to combine. That's number 1. So we'll say, so 2 Amos from Rishus HaYachid A, 2 Amos from Rishus HaYachid, from Rishus HaRabim B, have the ability to combine, to make it that you have traveled, that the object has traveled, Dalet Amos in Rishus HaRabim. That's lesson number 1. Rabbi say, even though there's an intervening Rishus, that does not disrupt the combination of the 2 Amos. And secondly, Udalo Amrinon, Kluta Kimashoncha. And Rabbi say, what else does it teach me? It also teaches me that Halacha Lamaisa, we do not say Kluta Kimishoncha. The Rabbi say, when an object passes through a domain, we do not view it as if it has come to rest. And Rabbi say, this is indeed this is indeed the status of this. This is indeed how the Rambam paskins. Again, we're not going to go through the whole thing now just because of time, but he says as follows. He goes through all of these cases of Zorik Mirishas Hayachid, the Rishas Hayachid, Lamala Mishlosha, Rishas Rabim in the middle. So we'll say ultimately again, so that's how he paskin halacha lamaisa on these 2 points. Number one, that in this case, the traveling in 2 different Rishos Harabins has the ability to combine. So 2 amas here, 2 amas here, Rishos Harabim A, Rishos Harabim B have the ability to combine into Dalet amas. And secondly, Rabbosa, which is very important, halacha lamaisa, we do not say kluta kamishuhun chadami. This is very important. So halacha lamaisa, when an object travels through the airspace of a rishus, we do not view it as if it has come to rest in that rishus. That's halacha lamaisa. Good. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. We'll say fascinating halacha. Hamavir dalet amis b'rishus harabim makura pater. We'll say, listen to this. If a person goes ahead and carries an object dalet amis in a rishus harabim with a roof, a roofed rishus harabim, you are pater. You are pater. So the Gemara says, Makor is mechusa. Why is that? Because just remember again, everything we know by Hilchos Shabbos, or I should say by the Malachos of Shabbos, is learned out by the Midbar. Since, remember again, we've already seen, where does the Malach of Hotzah come from? Where does carrying come from? Carrying comes from the loading of the boards, right? Ultimately, again, of the Mishkan onto the wagons. And since in the Midbar, there was no roofed Rishus Harabim, therefore, halacha lemaisa, were you to carry Dalet Amas in Rishus Harabim that has a roof, ultimately, again, one is not pater. So the Gemara says, really? There's no roofed Rishus Harabim in the Midbar? What about Vaha Agalos de Mikoros Havyon? We'll say, what about the wagons? Right, the wagons, or specifically the area underneath the wagons, was that not an area of a roofed Rishus Harabim? Take a look at Rashi. De Mikoros Havu, Bekrashim Hasadurin Alehen, Rachban La'orech Hagala, Va'arkan L'Rachban, Arosh Dafno Sel, V'Kasaka Daitcha Al Pnei Kol Orech Hagalos, Hayum Sudaros. So we'll say, we're going to see the beams we're assuming over here we're not assuming, the beams were situated on the wagons. Then Abba said, now, but Pashtos, the way the beams were placed, and again, we're going to discuss this in just a moment, is the length of the beams was put on the width of the wagon, which means that you had beams ultimately overhanging the size of the sides of the wagon. So Abba say the area underneath the beams, so therefore the beam which extends over the sides of the wagon, essentially creates a roofed area. Is that not a roofed Rishus Harabim? Is that not a roofed Rishus Harabim? To which the Gemara says, V'amar Rab Mishum Rabbi Chia, Agalos Tachteyen Ubeinehen Utzidein Rishus Harabim. And yet Rebbe says that what? When it comes to the wagons, the area underneath the wagons, the area between the wagons, and the sides of the wagons are all considered to be Rishus Harabim. So Rabbi said, you just told me before that halacha l'maisa on Shabbos, if I carry Dalet Amas in a roofed Rishus Harabim, I am not chayiv, because a roofed Rishus Harabim does not resemble the nature and setup of Rishus Harabim in the desert. Really? Really? After all, we have another brisa, and the brisa says that the wagons, underneath the wagons, between the wagons, the side of the wagons is all called Rishus Harabim. And Rabbi says we're going to see the boards extended over the sides, which means that technically speaking, if you were walking in Rishus Harabim by one of the wagons, you could walk underneath the boards. I mean, you'd have to crouch a little bit, but you could walk underneath the boards. And we're saying that is Rishus Harabim. So is that not a case of a roofed Rishus Harabim? So the Gemara says, no. Ki ka'amar Rav. When Rav said that ultimately, again, if you carry Dalet Amas in a roofed Rishus Harabim, that you're not going to be chayiv, when is that? Rabbi say, Ki ka'amar Rav, bidar asa. Ultimately, you're going to say in the darasa. Look at Rashi for just a moment over here. Bidar asa, berevech shabein shuros haseder, sheyesuder keresh al keresh seder umanichos. Rabbi says we're going to see, when did Rav make his statement? Rav meant his statement ultimately, again, in the area between the stacks. In the area between the stacks, we're going to see now how the boards themselves were stacked on the wagon. So when Rav made his statement, he was talking about the spaces in between the stacks. To which the Gemara says, but 1 second, let's understand this for just a moment. Let's understand this. To which the Gemara says, Michti, Arka de Agala Kamahavi. We say, how much was the length of the wagon? The length of the wagon was Chamesh Amin, 5 amas. Fusya de Keresh Kamahavi. What's the width of the board? Amsa upalga. That's 1.5 amas. So the Gemara says, Kama Mosiv. How many stacks, ultimately again, of boards did they have? Tlasa. So 3 stacks of boards, right? 3 stacks of boards. So therefore, again, the Gemara says, Kama Mosiv Tlasa. Pashale Palgada Amsa. So we'll say, it turns out that what? So again, if you're arranging three stacks of wood, and the width of each stack is 1.5 amas, and the wagon itself has 5 amas of length, that leaves you a half an amma of space. Palgada Amsa, ki shadi leimar beini ubeini, kilavadami. Now, the assumption is, okay, so therefore, again, we're assuming, remember, the Gemara is making the assumption right now that the way the boards were situated on the wagon was the length of the boards along the width of the wagon. The width of a board was 1.5 amas. There are 3 stacks of boards. So I'll say, right, 3 stacks of boards, that's 4.5 amas on a wagon that had 5 amas of length. The assumption is, so therefore that leaves you an extra half amma of space. The assumption is that you're going to leave a little bit of space in between each stack of boards. So therefore, I will say you're going to go ahead and use a half an amma to space the 3 stacks. So we'll say at the end of the day, halacha l'maisa, it's lavud, right? Again, as you saw in yesterday's daf, there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai that any space less than 3 amas is considered what? To be closed. If that's the case, then the half amma space in between the boards is really halachically insignificant. The entire area is considered to be covered by the boards, in which case it would appear that in fact you do have a case of a roofed Rishus Harabim. So why does Rav say before that you're not chayv for carrying underneath a roofed Rishus Harabim? To which the Gemara says, no. Mi savris krushim afusaihu hava manachlu. No. You're assuming that the krushim, that the boards were laying flat. We're laying flat on the wagon. The width-wise, we're laying flat. The Gemara says that's not true. Achudan manachluhu. In fact, Rabbi say the boards were actually put on the wagons on their sides. So the boards were actually arranged on their sides. So there are 3 stacks of boards on their sides. To which the Gemara says, Sof, sumcha de keresh kamahavi. So we'll say, so what is the thickness of the board? When ultimately, again, it's laying on its side. Amsa, ultimately, again, it's an amma. So we'll say, so remember, it's an amma of thickness. Kama hava mosiv, arba. How many stacks ultimately, again, would you put there? The Gemara says 4. Pashala amsa. So again, we'll say, either way, when you do the math, halacha l'maisa, you only have an amma of space left. So ki shadi leimar beini ubeini kilavutami. I will say, still, if all you have is an amma of space in between the stacks, and the amma we assume is dispersed really between stacks 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, or whatever board numbers like that, the Gemara says you have lavud. You have less than a significant. So because of that, if you were to be walking underneath the wagon, or for that matter, walking by the sides of the wagon, the overhang of the boards, halach l'maisa, that entire area is considered to be roofed. Sahani chalaman damar krashim milamatan ovyon ama milamalon kalin v'holkin ad ke'etzba shapir. So we'll say, listen to this. So the Gemara now introduces another machlokes. All of this makes sense, according to the opinion who says that the boards on their bottom were an amma in thickness, but on top, ultimately, again, they were tapered. And they were tapered to the point that they go ahead and literally come out at the tip. They're like ad ke'etzba. It's only the size of a finger. So we'll say, in that type of case, if you could set it up that way, then einachinami, look at Rashi. Hanicha hada amrit shareva chazer rishus harabim. So we'll say, now watch it. Let me do this outside. So if you hold that halacha l'maisa, the tips or the tops of the boards were tapered, then I will say you could find a situation in which the space between the boards was significant enough so that it's not considered to be lavud. If that's the case, then you could see that maybe the covered area is not Rosh Hashanah. And when we speak about the sides of the wagons being Rosh Hashanah, that refers to the area by the tapered sides, because there was much more open space. However, the Gemara says, "Elamanda Amar Kashem Milamaton Ovyon Ama, Kach Milamala Ovyon Ama, Ma'ika Lameimar." But it will say, if you hold that the boards were the same on the bottom and the top, that the same way they were an Amma on the bottom, they were an Amma on the top, then I will say that means there's very little space in between the boards or in between the stacks, and therefore halacha l'maisa, it should be governed by lavud. If it's governed by lavud, the entire area is closed, covered. If the entire area is covered, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, that contradicts Rav, who says that a covered area is not a Rosh Hashanah. Rav Kana, what's the case? Ba'at boi. Look at Rashi. He says ba'at boi. Berevach shebein sidei hakrashim shatabos kvuos ban kamarav dahavi Rosh Hashanah. Kilomar efshar l'sader ba arba starnki de ka'amrit. Lefi shatabos kvuim krashim. So we'll say this is very interesting. Remember, as we're going to see in just a moment, the boards themselves had rings on them. So you actually can't arrange the boards as close to each other as you would have thought. So by definition, there's more space in between the boards, and perhaps it's that space that's considered to be Rosh Hashanah, but ultimately, again, the covered area will not be Rosh Hashanah. To which the Gemara says, "Atboy heicham manachlu." So I'll say, so again, how do you arrange these boards then? So the Gemara says, "Agaba the agala." Ultimately, again, on the back of the wagon, agala gufa mekorahavi. So we'll say, let's go back for just a moment. Isn't the wagon itself considered to be a roofed area, right? We'll say, remember again, the Brisa said before that halacha l'maisa, right? We'll say, just so you understand, we have two competing Brises. We have Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, same name Rabbi Abba, same name Rav Huna, same the name of Rav. That if you carry an object Dalet Amis in a roofed Rishus Harabim, you are not chayiv. Why not? Because that does not resemble that which was done in the Mishkan. Fine, that's statement one. Statement two is the Gemara says that the wagons, underneath the wagons, between the wagons, the sides of the wagons, is Rishus Harabim. So I will say, so we're not understanding that, because at the end of the day, what does that mean? So we're trying to figure out is, well, maybe there was space in between the boards, right? The stacks of boards. I mean, that's what it means when it says that the sides of the wagons were Rosh Hashanah. It's referring to the area of the space in between the boards, but not underneath the boards. So you want to say, well, 1 second. What about underneath the wagon itself? The Brisa says that underneath the wagon is Rosh Hashanah. But how could underneath the wagon be Rosh Hashanah? After all, is that not a covered area? To which the Gemara says, Egla, Agala Gufa Makora Havi, Amadeus, Amar Shmuel Biyasedos. So this is actually very interesting. So Shmuel says that halacha l'maisa, this was not what they call a flatbed wagon. Right? This wasn't a flatbed wagon. It wasn't a wagon with a complete floor. Rather, again, it says the Gemara had pegs. What does this mean? Look at Rashi. Amar Shmuel Biyasedos. Lo hayu makros milamata eli yasedos hayu berevach beinein kin osun shalom azus. Supposed to listen to this. It's a very simple idea. The wagons in the midbar, I will say, were not flatbed. Did not have a complete floor. What did they had? They had a number of slats in between the two sides of the wagon. So we'll say, right. So essentially, you had a number of boards just running across the wagon to hold together the two sides. But there was plenty of open space, which makes sense to us because remember again. Those wagons were used for one thing and one thing only, which is what? To transport the boards. That's all they were used for. So as such, you don't need a flatbed wagon to be able to do that. So therefore, the Gemara says the wagon is the easy part, right? The wagon. So the fact that we say that underneath the wagon is considered to be Rishus Harabim, that works absolutely fine. Because at the end of the day, halacha l'maisa, that space ultimately was open. Tanrabanan. Krashim milam. So we'll say now we're going to analyze a bit more. So krashim milamatan ovyan ama milamalan kolin v'holchin ad ketzba. So we'll say, remember again, we're going to see now there is a fascinating machloges about what the krashim. The krashim are the boards. The boards formed the walls of the Mishkan. What did the krashim look like? So the Gemara says the krashim milamaton ovyan ama. On the bottom they were an ama thick. Umilamalon kolin v'holchin. But I will say what they did is they tapered off to the top. v'holchin ad ke'etzba, and they become the width of a finger. So they, as you go up, it tapers off, and by the time you get to the top of the crushim, it's only the width of a finger. Shneimar yutamim al rosho. It says it shall be tamim on top. Lanu omer tamu nichresu. And both sides it says that what? Again, Gemara is quoting two different psukim. The first pasuk Gemara quoted of yihi yutamim al rosho is talking about the crushim. The second pasuk that the Gemara talks about is in Sefer Yoshua. So use lashon of tamu nichresu. Literally, again, they were completed and cut off. So we'll say the Gemara is kind of mixing and matching a little bit. The Gemara is assuming that when it says yihi yutamim, they shall be complete. Ultimately, again, by the crushim, what it's a reference to, what does complete mean? Complete means cut off. What does cut off mean? Tapered. So therefore, the top of the boards of the Mishkan came to a point, right? Not a sharp point, but only the width of a finger. So the Gemara says, Ulahalanu Omer. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda. These words, Rabbi Yehuda. So in Rabbi Yehuda's model, the crushim had an amma of width on the bottom, but to the top they tapered off and only had the width of a finger. Rabbi Nechemia says no. Kishem shem milamatan ovyan amma, kach milamalon ovyan amma. Rabbi Nechemia says no, not true. The crushim were the same on the top and on the bottom. The same way that on the bottom they were an amma, so too on the top they were an amma as well. Shene'emar, because the pasuk says yachtov, together. So we'll say together. Rabbi Nechemia understands mean that there's a symmetry between the top of the keresh and the bottom of the keresh. That ultimately, again, just like it's an amma at the bottom, so too it's an amma at the top. V'hok sif tamim. But Rabbi Nechemia, what do you do with the word tamim? Right? Doesn't tamim indicate to us that halacha l'maaseh should taper off, become thinner at the top? Hahu the lesu shleimim v'lo lesu denisra. Well, so what this teaches me is as follows: that the boards of the Mishkan must be made of complete pieces of wood, and cannot be made of other smaller pieces of wood which are pressed together. So you hear this chilik over here. So remember, so fundamental machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Yehuda says, also the way the keresh looked was an amma at the bottom and it tapered off to a finger on the top. Rabbi Nechemia is saying it was an amma on the bottom and an amma on top. Rabbi Yehuda learning out his position from tamim. He's understanding tamim means cut off, smaller at the top. Rabbi Nechemia says tamim means that the crushim must be made from one piece of wood and not assembled from multiple pieces of smaller wood. V'idach haksiv nami yachtov. But Rabbi Yehuda, what do you do with the word yachtov, which seems to indicate a certain level of symmetry between the top and the bottom of the board? Hahu delo lishalchufinhu mehadadi. So we'll say ultimately, and Rashi says, Rabbi Yehuda understands that ultimately, Rabbi Yehuda understands yachtov means the boards must be arranged in alignment. You can't have, see, I will say essentially that the Mishkan cannot look like one of your do-it-yourself home projects, where ultimately, again, it looks okay. It looks okay. Just like look at it this way. Don't look at it that way. Don't tilt your head to the right, not to the left. And when the sun bounces off, it looks perfect. No, that's not the Mishkan. I mean, the boards have to be perfectly flush with one another. It has to be a straight wall. Good. So they both say, so this is the fundamental machlokes. So we're going to see a number of ramifications. So once again, Rabbi Yehuda is saying that ultimately the crushim were an amma on the bottom and tapered, only the width of a finger on top. Rabbi Nechemia is saying the crushim were an amma on the bottom and an amma on top. So says the Gemara. Bishlama. So according to the opinion who says, which is Rabbi Nechemia, that they were an amma on the top and an amma on the bottom, it makes sense. Hainu dichsiv, uliyakase hamishkan yama ta'aseh shisha krashim. So both say the Torah says as follows: that literally again for the western side of the Mishkan, ta'aseh shisha krashim, you'll make 6 panels. So we'll say, so remember, the idea over here is, this is actually referring to the coverings. Well, actually, let's see. Uliyakase mishkan yama ta'aseh shisha krashim, Ushne krashim tasa lemekutzos. I'm sorry, not the curtains yet. For the western side of the Mishkan, you shall make 6 boards, and 2 boards will be lemekutzos. Ultimately, again, will be for the corners. So let's say, still talking about the boards themselves. Now watch this. So let's say if you hold, so you have 2 boards at the corners. Now both say, if you hold that the krushim were the same size on the top and the bottom, they were an amma on the bottom, amma on the top, so these corner pieces work perfectly. Why? Da'asa fusya dahani mimali leila sumcha dahani. Because I will say again, if the boards are symmetrical, an amma on the top and amma on the bottom, then when they meet at the corners, you could have perfectly rounded out corners. Elaman damer milamaton ovion amma milamalon kalin v'holchin ad ketzba high ayil v'high nafik. So we'll say ultimately again, but one second, if you hold that the top of the boards were tapered, then I will say you could have a situation where at the corners, essentially it looks like some of the boards are leaning in, some of the boards are leaning out. It doesn't line up flush like it would ultimately, again, if it was 1 amma on top, 1 amma on the bottom, to which the Gemara says, okay, the shafi lei kiturin. Ultimately, so they must have worked, according to that opinion, they must have worked on the corners, literally again, chiseled it out like a mountain. Just like the mountain have peaks, but again, they fit together. So too, they must have chiseled out the corner pieces in order to go ahead and make them fit together. Okay, so the Gemara says, "V'habriach hatichon." So we'll say, so again, just want to point out, it's really quite fascinating that this is a machlokes about what the Mishkan looked like. It's just a fundamental machlokes. So we'll say, so there's just 2 different opinions. Again, how the boards themselves looked. Once again, Rabbi Huda telling us, Amma on the bottom, tapered like a finger on top. Rabbi Nechemia telling us, Amma on the bottom, Amma on top. V'abriach hatichon b'socha krashim. So we'll say, remember again, the Torah tells us that the briach hatichon. The briach hatichon was as follows. The boards were kept in place in 2 ways. Number 1, the boards themselves, now both say, actually, interestingly enough, on the bottom of the boards were like 2 protrusions. Those 2 protrusions fit into silver sockets that locked the boards in place. In addition, as we saw before, each board had a ring attached to it. Through that ring was another pole that went through it that locked all of the boards in place. That pole was called the briach hatichon. So the Gemara says the briach hatichon b'socha krashim tana b'neis hayomer. Both say the briach hatichon was miraculous. Both say why was the briach hatichon miraculous? Like Rashi, b'neis hayomer. It's in the third of the intermediate wide lines of Rashi. She'achar she'akrashim kulam nesunim ba'adonim l'tzamfon l'marav l'daram hayinos l'marich l'shloshas eruchos. So listen to this. This is incredible. So the briach hatichon was one long pole, but an incredible miracle happened, which was after all the boards were situated inside of the sockets, someone would come and insert the pole, and miraculously, the pole wrapped around all 3 sides of the Mishkan. So the pole was straight, but somehow it was able miraculously to wrap around all 3 sides of the Mishkan. Incredible. That's how Mishkan Tasa Eser Yirios. So we'll say, now I'm sorry, before I said now it's the curtains. The Mishkan shall be made, you shall make 10 curtains. Orech hayiriya acha shmona v'esrim ba'ama. So we'll say, now watch this. The length of 1 curtain was ultimately what? Shmona v'esrim ba'ama. Ultimately 28 amas. So let's analyze it. So now we're going to see that the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Nechemia about the size of the tops of the krushim actually has ramifications on the way we understand other parts of the Mishkan. So now we're being told that the length of one of the curtains was 28 amas. Shadi or kayu lefosya the Mishkan. So put the length of the curtain along the width of the Mishkan. Kama havya, how much hangs over? So how much is that? I'm sorry, not hang over yet. How much is that? Esrim etamnis. As we just said before, it's 28 amas. Dal eser legra. So take away 10 amas because that represents the airspace of the width of the Mishkan. Pashalahu tesla high gisa v'tesla high gisa. That leaves you again with 9 amas of overhang on each side of the Mishkan from the curtain. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Huda migla amadadonim. According to Rabbi Huda, Rabbi say. So remember, according to Rabbi Huda, there's an amma of extra width on the top, which was the amma on the top of the krushim. That means when the curtains, when they were hanging down on the side, all you were able to see was the silver socket. Rabbi Nechemia migla amma de krushim. According to Rabbi Nechemia, however, again, you were able to see the amma of the krushim as well. Shadai fusya la'arka de Mishkan. But if you were to go ahead and put the width of the curtain to the length of the Mishkan, kama havyo, so what would the measurements be? Arba'in, 40 amas. Dal tlasin le'igra, so take out 30 for the interior space of the Mishkan, the airspace. Pashlu yud, you're left with 10 amas. Rabbi Yehuda mechasya amma da'adan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, therefore, the curtain would cover the amma of the adanim of the sakis. Rabbi Nechemia migla amma da'adan. According to Rabbi Nechemia, you would actually be able to see the amma of the adanim of the sakits. Vasise yirios izim laohel. You shall make coverings of goat hair for the oel moed, for the mishkan. Orech hayiriya achash shloshim ba'amah. And the length of one of the curtains, I'm calling curtains, it's really coverings, was 30 amas. So watch this. Shadai or chayula fusya de mishkan. So place the length of the curtain along the width of the mishkan. Kama havyon, how much is that? Tlosim, 30 amas. Dal eser leigra. So take away 10, ultimately again, for the opening of the Mishkan. Pashalu eser, lahaygisa ve'eser lahaygisa. That leaves you with 10 amas on one side, 10 amas on the other side. Rabbi Yehuda, mechasya amadadan. According to Rabbi Yehuda, ultimately again it covers the amma of the Adanim. Rabbi Nechemia migla amadadan. According to Rabbi Nechemia, the amma of the Adanim can be seen. That supports the both. I just want to point out, all the Gemara is pointing out over here is the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia about the size of the top of the keresh of the beam has ramifications for how the curtain would lie on the Mishkan, which makes sense. The thicker the beam, the more that is revealed at the base of the Mishkan. The thinner the beam, the less that is revealed on the base of the Mishkan. That supports this. So ultimately, again, the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the amma of the Adanim was covered. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, lechasos amma shel krashim. He says, no, it covers the amma of the boards. Shadai fusyahu la'arkei de Mishkan. So go ahead and take and put the width of the curtain to the length of the Mishkan. Kama havya, how much is that? Mem va'arba. Ultimately, you're going to it's 44. Dal tlasan le'igra, take away 30 amas for the interior space of the Mishkan. Pashlu arba sari. You're left with 14. Dal tarti lekafla, dichsiva kafaltas hayiriya shishis amopnei oel. So take away 2 extra amas. Ultimately, again, because there had to be a little bit of excess curtain on one side. So ultimately, again, partially tarti sari. You're left with 2. Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda hanu dichsiv chatzi hayiriya defes tisrach. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, this makes sense because Rabbi Yehuda holds that halacha lamaisa there was supposed to be a little bit of additional curtain overhang. Ela Rabbi Nechemia mai tisrach. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Nechemia, what does he do with that? Because it doesn't seem to extend down onto the ground. To which the Gemara says, Tisrach mechavro seha. It means allow it to be a little bit longer than its friends. Tanya de Rabbi Shmuel, Lemam Mishkan Domet. To what could the Mishkan be compared? Liisha shemahaleches b'shuk v'shipuleha mahalchin achareha. So both say, so again, just the image that's being made over here is as follows. On the back of the Mishkan, the curtain extended further down than the rest of the sides. So machlokes Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Nechemia about how far. So according to one opinion, it actually extended onto the ground and even a little bit. According to the other opinion, it just extended further down than the other sides, but not onto the ground itself. Either way, what's the imagery? So it's like quite beautiful. The imagery is for a woman who walks through the shuk and has a trail, her dress trails. So the truth is, I don't know that we see this in fashion, except let's say by a kala, right? So by a bride, so she has, I forgot what you call that part of the dress that goes behind. Okay, the part of the dress that goes. I paid for it. I just don't know. I don't know. Like I don't remember what it's called. But lemaisa. So just like the kala, right? Just like the kala has that part of her dress that travels behind her. So ultimately, again, that was the imagery of the Mishkan, right? The imagery of the Mishkan was like a kala walking with the trail of her dress behind her. So machlokes, again, how far it extended, but one thing is clear, which is it extended. Oh, train. Okay, thank you, Mr. Efron. Good, it's called the train of the dress. Excellent. So we'll say, so too the Mishkan had the train as well. So we'll say, we'll stop over here. I just want to point out, again, still in the machlokes. So just want to point out, all the Gemara was just trying to accomplish with this sugya is to show us how the machlokes by the krushim is not simply a machlokus about the width of the top of the keresh. Well, it is a machlokus about the width of the top of the keresh. So again, you have Rabbi Yehuda saying an amma on the bottom, tapered like a pencil, like a finger all the way on top. Rabbi Nechemia is saying amma on the bottom, amma on top. Just to understand, there are two ramifications. First of all, how the corners looked. Ultimately, again, also how the curtains would lay on the Mishkan also depended on the width of the top of the Mishkan. What we also come out with is that ultimately the back of the Mishkan, the curtain would extend further down than the rest of the sides. How much further down? Machlokes can Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia. But I will say, I don't want you to lose sight of why we got into all of this. Remember, how do we get into all of this? We're trying to show that halacha lemaisa. Remember, we have two conflicting statements which we have still not yet resolved. Statement number one is that of Rav, that if you carry something underneath a roofed Rishus Harabim, you are not chayiv, because that does not resemble the Mishkan. Yet the conflicting brisa that says the area underneath the wagon and underneath the boards was considered to be Rishus Harabim. Now I will say, you know where we're going to go with this. According to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the boards were tapered on top, maybe when we say that the area underneath the boards doesn't really mean the area underneath the boards. Rather, what does it mean? The area between the boards. Because now that they're tapered, there is this open area between the boards, and maybe ultimately that. So okay, we'll have to stop over here. Still in the machlokes, and Emirat Hashem to be continued. Rabbi Yehuda Neuberger is going to be giving shir Emirat Hashem Matzei Shabbos. To continue with the Sigur Bosai, wishing everyone a wonderful day, a good Erev Shabbos, a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh. We're going to end this Zoom room and Emirat Hashem begin again in the shul parking lot for Shachris in just a few moments. Wishing everyone a wonderful day.